Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Rev no shorty, and this may be a little shorter than 5 minutes. I'm going to take a look at the new history of the DC Universe today, and this is one where I was vaguely interested in it because of a couple of random things. Number one, Mark Waid is writing it, and after kind of not doing much for a while that impressed me, or at least made it onto my radar, Waid over the past year or so has been really impressing me. He's dropped a bunch of stuff which I've really enjoyed. Some kind of stuff which I think suits his temperament very, very well, like big, all-encompassing events in the DC Universe. And also surprised me by how much I found myself recommending to other people. At a point in my life, I'd have said I've probably recommended Mark Waid to anyone who'd walk in, but now it feels unusual to be doing it. So yeah, I was going to pay attention to this one. Throw into the mix, not that long ago, John Ridley did the other history of the DC Universe, one of my favourite books of the year that came out. Even though it was mostly just walls of text over beautiful artwork, it did add an awful lot to my understanding of the DC Universe through a racial lens. It added a lot of context. In fact, Ridley himself added a lot of context to these stories, the kind of stuff which my viewpoint wouldn't have taken, and certainly didn't take in. And he's also just a really, really good writer. Mostly he does work in prose, and it came across really effectively here because it wasn't on-screen dialogue or on-page dialogue. And I thought, yeah, okay, Mark Waid doing something similar, I'm absolutely going to pay attention to that. Frustratingly, it's not what I got at all. Yes, what we do have is an awful lot of text over art, but it falls at so many hurdles. First off, we start with this genuinely cool bit of artwork by Nauk, and throughout the book, Nauk goes slightly further down in my estimation, just a little bit each time, but only ever so slightly, because there's a tendency to draw teeth in a certain way, which just bugs me. There's another artist involved, his name I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're both actually pretty good artists. I have no major criticism on any of the artwork in here. Some of the bits, weirdly have some dynamism to it. There's some very nice character design beats. Nauk is a very, very good Marvel art style artist. His stuff with DC works quite nicely for what he's doing here. But the first page is really quite gorgeous look at Wally West, one of the Flashers, in what looks to be his own personal hoarder's heaven. A bunch of stuff I can only assume he's stolen from other superheroes, talking about the fact that because he is the Flash and he can travel through time, and there's been an awful lot of interdimensional time travel, changing reality kind of stuff, he's the one person who should know what's going on, and he's going to do his best to catalogue it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this could be kind of interesting, seeing it from the point of view of somebody who may have actually been there, who's doing it just to fill in some gaps maybe. But then what we get is page after page after page after page of just a list of things. There's no real context to story. There's an occasional little line thrown in, which feels like he's adding something to it, like the fact that the Justice Society of America was formed by Roosevelt, and then one of their replacements didn't do a good enough job. But that is the beginning, middle, and end of anything to do with that. There is no continuation, really. There's an occasional reference to but then this person who I mentioned several pages ago, they're now doing this. But there's no connective tissue, there's no narrative structure. It is just a series of pretty solid artwork with very boring descriptors of what's going on. And we lose a bunch of pages at the back because there's a load of endnotes. Frustratingly, none of them specifically referenced as in, if you like this thing that's happened on this page, check this endnote. You just go to the back, and then again, it's just a list of contextless things with occasional bits of artwork. And honestly, you could have thrown all that in the bin, had a few extra pages to maybe add some narrative flow to this, to give a sense of a story unfolding. This feels like a very, very weird attempt to do whatever the whole, was it Marvel Fact Files or DC Fact Files, whatever they were back in the day. It feels like one of those, but so little time and space and energy given to anything other than just, and then there's another one, and then there's another one, and then there's another one. I had a customer come in when I was halfway through reading it, and I almost stopped. The only reason I carried on was just in case something else comes along here, just in case something else happens that is interesting enough to be talking about, instead of me just being like, well, that was certainly some words I read, because there's nothing to it that makes it worthwhile as a form of comic book art. Comic books are a visual storytelling medium, and there was no story there at all. There was just a series of names on a page with so little context as to be lost in a sea of verbiage. And yeah, very, very disappointed. But like I say, that's just what it is. I can't do anything about that. And that is it for me for this week, though. So until I see you all again, look after you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.